Hey, everybody, welcome back to the show. Today we're here with my buddy Brad Bone out of California, and he has a rich background of working with family from family farm that's coming up on being around for about 100 years almost into real estate investing. So a lot of us work with family, a lot of us make a lot of mistakes, but there's a lot of benefits if you do it right. That's what we're going to talk about today. Professional real estate investors know that it's not really about the real estate. In fact, real estate is just a vehicle to freedom. A group of over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors from across the country meet several times a year at the Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind to share ideas on how to strengthen each other's businesses, but also to come together as friends and build more fulfilling lives for all of those around us. On today's show, we're going to continue our conversation of fueling our businesses and fueling our lives. I'm glad you're here.
Good to be here, Mike. Thanks.
Hey, Brad. Good to see you. So it's interesting. You have a really rich family background in terms of, I guess, entrepreneurship, at least, right? Starting with farming out there.
Yeah. So my grandpa started farming, back in I think it was like the 30s, and then my dad started farming after that. So we've always been kind of entrepreneurial in our family. So yeah, it's kind of natural, kind of feeds into what we're doing now.
Yeah, and I grew up in the Midwest. You're out in California, and I didn't live on a farm and have no farming experience, but it was a very much farm agriculture. It was very much an agricultural area. John Deere's based there, and there's just a bunch of stuff in the Midwest that's farming based. And so, I like to believe I have a really strong work ethic, and my whole family works really hard. A lot of blue collar background, but I feel like farming and things like that really create a really solid work ethic of just overcoming obstacles and doing whatever it takes to get the job done. So, would you agree with that?
Yeah. I remember planting cotton during spring break when all my friends were on vacation.
Yeah.
I think we even got pulled out of school sometimes to do that, but
yeah.
I'm thankful for it now.
Yeah. So kind of tell us your background. I mean, you've got this rich kind of farming background, and then somehow you found your way into real estate investing. So tell us more about that.
Yeah. So I actually, my background is so we grew up in farming, but I kind of went towards construction, things like that. So I worked for a commercial builder for a while after college, and then for a government construction contractor. And then I was always interested in real estate and always interested in investing. So I started working with a cousin, that his family had been in real estate for a long time, started kind of buying some houses at the courthouse steps back in 2014. And the deals were real skinny, but we ended up buying a couple houses, and then made a little bit of money. But my brother and I got interested in doing it together. We bought a rental in early 2015, and then we got all excited about that. And then a couple months later, we had a flip under contract to buy. And I told my brother, I said, if we buy this house, I'm going to quit my job. And which seems crazy now, but
it's infectious, right?
Yeah. But I did. And the reason is because I felt like if we're going to do this, I'm going to need to market. I'm going to need to answer calls, go on appointments, things like that. And so we bought this house from a wholesaler. I quit my job, and I went to my dad and said, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. Can you float me for 6 months? I think we're going to be doing good in 6 months. We're going to buying a bunch of houses. So he goes, sure. And we start marketing, didn't buy anything in 6 months, had nothing. So I went back to him and said, hey, can you do another 6 months? I think for sure we'll be good. And for some reason he said, sure. And we started just trying to make stuff happen. And we started buying out of state. We had this idea that if we could buy something at 70% of ARV minus repairs, we were going to make money. And I don't know if I'd really recommend that for someone as new as us back then, but that was what we believed. And so we tried to make it happen. And we started getting some traction, and things started going.
Yeah, that's great. Back to that kind of work ethic. I think ultimately persistence pays off in real estate investing, because a lot of people, really probably any entrepreneurial venture, because so many people, if you watch in real estate, if you watch HGTV, or if you follow any big name gurus or anything like that, it's generally more work than what you were led to believe.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
persistence pays off, because sometimes you need a longer runway. There's always, I do a lot of coaching. Whenever I have somebody that I had a coaching student like a year and a half ago. They bought their first 2 leads. They bought 2 houses, and they were really good deals. And I was like, this isn't necessarily a good thing, because you're not overcoming any adversity yet, and you're going to get it.
Right.
But
Right.
for the average person, I mean, it took me 4 months of full time to buy our first house, and we had an office and a staff. We were came out of the gates trying to go big, and it was a hard 4 months. It was a hard time to, every day you're like, what are we doing wrong? And it's like you just need runway, right? You just need experiences. So
yeah, I think it's kind of mindset too. It's like, for whatever reason, we just felt like, okay, we can buy in any state at 70% of ARV. And that's not necessarily true, but it did get us, it caused us to start buying out of state. Like, when you grow up in California, so to speak, as a real estate investor, you're always thinking about trying to get out of the state, trying to buy somewhere else. So we always kind of had that mindset, even from the beginning. And so that's helped us now, where we're doing a lot of deals in Jacksonville, Florida. And so, we've never been afraid to be out of state, but we have learned there's a lot of things that we've learned too, that we've done wrong, that we figured out a little better now.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about kind of working with family. So you work in the business with your brother, right? And I know just because you told me previously that when your dad inherited the farm, or a part of it, he was one of 12, or he had 12 brothers and sisters, right? Huge family, right? And so, I've seen most people with big families. I've either seen they're trying to get away from their family, or or they find a way to collaborate and work together just because they had to, probably. And so, you think you do a bunch of stuff with family, which we're going to get into here now. Do you think that that's part of it, is kind of that legacy of big family and we help each other out? Is that where that came from?
Yeah, I think partly that's part of it. It's kind of interesting. Like, Justin and I are twins. So in a sense, we've always been partners, not necessarily business partners, but we've always had a close partnership because we're twins. So that's something a little bit unique, even more unique than just being siblings. So when we started working together, I wasn't really sure how it would go, because we're similar in a lot of ways, but in other ways we're different. And I wasn't really sure if it would be good or how it would go. But we've actually grown closer because of it. And we found our niches. Like, we found what he's really good at certain things. He's good with watching the money and doing that kind of stuff. And I'm good with the operations side. So we've and we didn't know that at first. We figured that out. But I think what has really been necessary is we've always had the same goals. We've never fought over goals and what we want to go towards. We completely trust each other. There's never been a question as to whether we can rely on each other as far as that goes. So I think those are things, and we have the same kind of, we have the personalities for it. Like, you can have a great family member who's really a great person, but they just don't have the mindset to do something like that, and that probably wouldn't be a good partnership.
Yeah.
But so
we talk a lot about, as you're a member of Investor Fuel, everybody's always talking about building their team, right? And the hardest thing is, sometimes we're notorious as small business owners for hiring the wrong person, right?
Yeah.
And there's personality profiles and stuff like that you can do, but I think some of it is you just sometimes we're just like, oh, he's got a sales background, really good at sales, he'd probably be great in this role. And that's good enough to bank your whole business on way too often.
Right.
But the reality is you get to know people over time. But I think, one of the problems that we have is sometimes we're too trusting with hiring the wrong people. And I think sometimes, and I have a little personal experience on this as well, is a little bit too much trust, even in family members or people you're related to, or friends or people that you know. You're just they're not really the perfect solution, but you're just like, well, he'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No, and
talk about that a little bit, just like making sure your skill set is the right thing and it's not a charity case.
right. So that's another really important thing is, so so obviously Justin and I work together. We're 50-50 partners in all the both businesses we have, rental and the flipping business. But then I've also worked with some cousins. We've worked in some friends, and yeah. So one of the principles is that, and we've talked to them up front about this, is it always has to be, we're both adding value. So if we're working together, it's got to be something where you're bringing something that we don't already have, and we're bringing something that you don't have. Like if you can go out and do this on your own, don't work with us. And if we can do something, so one of the ways we've done it is we've had some of our cousins that have been interested in it. They've paid for marketing, and then they get cut in on the deal when we buy a house through their marketing. So that's a real clean way of doing it. But yeah, very important to not make it a charity case, because they're not going to like it either. They're not going to feel good about just getting money for nothing, and
Right.
you want to work with people that feel that way. And
Yeah.
all of these people we've worked with, they would feel that way anyway. They don't want to get paid if they're not bringing value. So
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. So talk a little about like how you, maybe something unique you do or something you learn, like kind of communication wise, because clear communication is important, and sometimes people's goals change over time. And that's kind of probably why the divorce rate is so high, is people kind of grow apart, right? Or their goals or their interests aren't misaligned over time. So, talk a little bit
yeah.
about the importance of that when you're working with family members, especially.
Yeah. So, for example, we were doing a lot of direct mail earlier on when we were working with one of my cousins here in town, and we stopped doing direct mail. And so it didn't make sense to have the same type of partnership. So we talked a lot up front about what's going to make sense and what's not going to make sense. And that was really important. Another thing we've talked about is like, there's no way we put it is like, there's no royalties that you have to pay. Like if you learn about different, if you network with people we know by working with us, and it makes sense for you to go and work with them, like you don't owe us anything, or it's just keep it really clean. I think that's been the main thing, is keep it really clean. Yeah. And that's worked out good. We've never had any problems with that, and everyone's it's worked out good. Yeah.
Yeah. And I recall, so your setup now is you're working with a cousin. It basically plays the role of the acquisitions manager and boots on the ground in Jacksonville. And I remember you talking to me a couple meetings back about working with family, or how does this work? How would this be structured? And so it sounds like it's worked out pretty good.
It has. It's worked out really good. Yeah. He's kind of a straight commissions structure, which is a clean way to do it. And he's great. He's a salesman, which I'm not. I've learned that. That's been kind of a lesson learned thing. He's much better of a salesman than I am. So he's adding value. He's in the market. He's boots on the ground. He knows how to network with people. So he's adding huge value to us, and we're adding value to him. So that's really, really been good. And I think those are things like that it's good to keep in mind when we're working with people. Yeah.
And so when you get comfortable investing virtually and you have a massive family, it sounds like it's just a matter of where are all the cousins at, right? As to other opportunities to go into other markets. You got like a distribution network there, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, it's been interesting working in Jacksonville, because when we first went out there, we started in early 2019 when we started buying in Jacksonville. Before that, we were buying in Northwest Indiana a little bit. We've done probably like 5 or 6 flips in Indiana. But one of the things we realized is it's probably makes sense to not be spread out everywhere, but pick a couple markets and be good in those markets. And it's kind of nice to have the diversity. If one market starts to dry up, it's good to have connections in another market. So that's one of the ways we've thought about it. But we went out there in 2019 and met a bunch of people. And I tried to buy over the phone for the first year. And we actually did buy some houses that way. I don't know how, but somehow we did, and we made a little bit of money. But I think the thing I've learned since then is get myself out of the acquisitions role, get someone in who is good at sales, like my cousin, and then it's a lot easier to scale that position, because if you're trying to scale yourself, you're just naturally not going to want to do it, because that means you got to work harder. But if you can scale somebody else, a system that you built, they're excited about it. And like my cousin, he wakes up every morning wanting to buy a house. That's not at all how I was thinking. Yeah. Which you've got to have a guy thinking that way in that position. So
yeah, I think one of the important things when working with family is I think it's probably better to fit them into like a typical role, acquisitions, or maybe administrative assistant type role, something like that. And I think where people get into problems is when they try to create a role for a family member. They're just like, you could probably, I'll make something up for you, you know?
Yeah.
If you have to make something up, it's probably not that important of a role anyway. And it's only going to end badly because, sometimes they're doing something that's not really clearly defined. I mean, if it's not clearly defined, it's just your metrics, your KPIs, stuff you're tracking are just not going to be as clear as to whether they're performing or not. And that's just probably going to end badly because you're going to get to a point where you're like, they're not really pulling their weight. And I don't know. I think a role like a sales role, acquisitions role is very clear defined. You're either performing well or you're not,
Right. No, and that's true. And it's good to have even my cousin out there. He's good at, he wants to know the numbers. He wants to know his KPIs, and whether it's family or not, you want someone in that role who is thinking about that, and motivated by that. So personality is a big part of it as well, just his personality.
So while we're a little bit on the topic of virtual investing too, so talk about, I get that in some California markets either too volatile or difficult. I mean, California is a different animal altogether with real estate and with a lot of other things too, but that. But in terms of virtual investing, maybe you could take a minute, just kind of share some of the bigger challenges you've had with virtually investing from. Basically, you're literally going from West Coast to East Coast, right? So a long ways away.
Yeah, you're trying to learn a brand new market, and there's so much nuance in every market, every neighborhood. So you're trying to learn a new market. You're trying to figure out who the people are you want to work with. So there's a lot of that. Here we were kind of. My cousin was living out there, but he was doing something else. He was working. He wasn't directly working with us. So I was trying to buy over the phone, and I didn't know the market. I was just looking up comps, and people do that. And there's some really smart people that have figured out a way to do that. But it's for people our size, it's probably not the right move. You want someone boots on the ground. So there are definitely some challenges. But ultimately, if it takes a little bit of time, but once you go through that process of learning who the people are, learning about the market, getting someone there who knows the market, I feel pretty comfortable in Jacksonville. In a lot of ways, I almost feel more comfortable there than here because we have a system and a team built out there.
Yeah, so that's what we were talking about this ahead of time. I think that the beauty of making the virtual model work is inevitably, in my experience, when you're investing only in your market, which is primarily all I've done. But when I look back over the years, it was like, for example, I literally was talking to my contractor today. He was rehabbing a house for us. And he's like, do you want to come out here and just like, they thought the floors were good. It's this old parquet that's been refinished, but then it turns out, well, it's not okay. And he's like, you want to come walk through and just like help make a decision? And I was just like, no, I don't want to, but it took me a second. I almost caught myself like, yeah, I'll run over there. But it's like, by the time I get there, it's 45 minutes away from here. And by the time it's all said and done, it's going to be a half day. I'm like, pick out flooring, like, or see if we can salvage what's there. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. But I had to think about it, And so it's really easy to get sucked into stuff when it's local. And when you're far away, you have to rely on a process that probably allows you to make a decision within seconds or a minute or two instead of let me dive in and roll up my sleeves a little bit if I have to. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've even thought, like, we haven't really marketed here in California for the past 6 months, just because we've been pushing everything to Florida. But I thought, like, when we start marketing here again, which we will always buy here in California, but when we do that, I kind of want to get an acquisitions guy here, because I'm the acquisitions guy if it's in California. And I want to build out a system here like we've been forced to do in Florida. So that is an advantage. You're forced to build a system completely out.
Yep.
So that's been you can sort of, not do that for a long time in your own market if you're not forced to.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Awesome. Well, Brad, you guys have been members of Investor Fuel for a while now, and maybe you could just share some experience, maybe a little testimonial on your experience as being a part of the group and kind of what that's meant for you, your business, or your life.
Yeah, when we joined, I think it was about a little over a year ago, I thought the way to scale was just throw more money at marketing and do that. That's a bunch more direct mail, all that kind of stuff. But coming into Investor Fuel, you just learn that there's so many different ways that people are doing it. And we got direction. I think that was a lot of it. We just got direction where we just thought there was kind of one way to scale and one way to do it. And the other thing I've realized is, like, every quarter, like, the market is changing. And so and you hear people say that, but you really don't believe it until you see it. Like, things change every single quarter about what's working and what's not working. And you don't realize that unless you're part of a mastermind, part of this mastermind specifically. So it's been great. I mean, we've very much benefited from it. So
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it helps to have a think tank of people that have their ear to the ground, right? Because it's just like anything. Like, if you're alone, you have to wait to experience each thing yourself. If you're part of a network, you're getting those bits and pieces of feedback that the network is hearing or experiencing.
Yeah.
You can kind of pivot sooner, right? Or
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it's been awesome having you guys in the group for sure. So
yeah, no, we've enjoyed it.
Cool. So hey, thanks. So thanks for joining us today. Really good having you on here.
Thank you. No, thanks for having me, Mike.
Hey, if folks wanted to learn more about you guys, about you, what you're working on, where can they go to connect and maybe learn more?
Yeah, they can find me on Facebook. We're Prime Buyers is the name of our company. We're on Facebook there as well. So just just find us there, or we're you can find us through Investor Fuel somehow too, I'm sure.
Yeah. Good. We'll add a link down below to find you on Facebook there. So, again, thanks so much. Good luck with everything. By the way, we didn't even talk about your pistachio farm. You guys have a pistachio farm. That's actually a really cool thing. So, the Bone family is a supplier to our snacking around here. So,
sounds good, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah. Everybody, hey, thanks for joining us today. Hope you got some value out of this. Sometimes working with your family is a good thing. My wife and I work side by side, and it's been good and bad. I think anybody that works with family has had some ups and downs, but I think the key is to communicate clearly, like Brad said, and make sure you guys have similar goals and everybody has a very clear role in the company, so that you're not questioning what people are doing. So appreciate you joining us today, everyone. If you haven't yet, you can subscribe to us anywhere where you're watching or listening to this right now. And of course, you can find all of our shows by visiting investorfuel.com. If you have any interest in learning any more about Investor Fuel, just go check out the page. You can schedule a call with us. We'd be happy to jump on a call and see if it makes sense for you. So appreciate you all. Until next time, have a great week. We'll see you. Are you an active real estate investor? If so, and you want to latch on to the power of surrounding yourself with over 100 of the nation's leading real estate investors, all committed to building stronger businesses and living richer, fuller lives, you should jump on a call with us to learn more about Investor Fuel. Simply visit investorfuel.com to get started.